York's only local show is back on its new home on York's only local station.
Guess who's back? Back again.
This is the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK.
I'm back.
Now, broadcasting live from WOYK's downtown York studios inside Wellspan Park, here's Gary Sutton.
We're at 7:04 on a Monday morning, February the 3rd, the first Monday in February. I am Gary Sutton. Mark McKenzie here as well, and glad you could join the Gary Sutton Show here on WOYK. Don't forget, you can text into the show today, 833-478-4729. And my question for the day today at Gary Sutton Show on Facebook as well. And you can answer this on our text at 833-478-4729. If you had a chance, would you take A, more love, B, more money, or C, more time? What would you like to have? A, more love, B, more money, or C, more time? If you had a choice, it's just kind of a fun question. Don't say, oh, it's not right. Lighten up. Okay, lighten up. That's my two favorite words today. Anyway, President Trump has been busy here in the first 2 weeks. There's no doubt about it. And you think about it. Somebody was complaining the other day. I said, what are you complaining about? I said, whether you like President Trump, whether you don't like President Trump, here's what the guy said he's going to do. He got elected, not only by the electoral vote, but also with the popular vote. He's now doing it. And maybe you don't like all the executive orders. Maybe you don't like all that. Whatever. But he is doing what he said he would do. So for those of you that elected him, don't say, well, I wish he would do this. He's doing what he said he would do with that. We bring in this morning Congressman Scott Perry from the 10th Congressional to talk a little bit about some of the things that the president is doing and some of the things the government's doing in the first 2 weeks. Congressman, always good to have you on the show. Good morning.
Well, it's great to be with you, Gary. And, it's a whirlwind of activity, and it's always the same with the new administration.
Right.
There's, the executives taking those actions, and in this case, it's exactly what President Trump said he was going to do. And quite honestly, I think in the case, if you look at the Biden administration, it was the same thing he said he was going to do. And so you can certainly understand that the people that didn't vote for him are going to be unhappy. It's not that it's a surprise to them. That's not what they agree with, and we understand that.
I think one of the things that's happening there, Congressman, is how quickly things are kicking in. Like you got 3,500 plus people that have been deported out of the country, some of these criminals and so forth. People didn't expect things to happen that much. You talk about it. It seems like this time around, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, that President Trump didn't understand the whole public sector of government the first time around in 2016. This time it seems like he understands how to deal with it a little bit more. And he has taken a pickaxe to it. I mean, he's going in there with the Doge stuff, all the things we saw on websites Friday night. We're seeing people right now, the whole tariff thing. He's going right into that right away. And I want to talk to you about that a little bit. But it seems like he understands how to deal with the government this time, where last time I think he thought it was just like any other thing in the business world, the private sector, and it wasn't that at all. Is that a fair analysis?
I think that's a pretty fair analysis. I also think that he understands that personnel is policy, and the last time, he was a little slower at getting people into positions and pick people for different reasons than he has this time. And so you're seeing the results of some of that stuff as well. And when I say that, I'm not just necessarily just talking about cabinet level picks that require confirmation from the Senate, but there's a whole cadre of administrative folks that work around the president that do different things. One of the big ones is called the Office of Management and Budget, and they have sweeping authority, and he sought to get that thing filled up pretty quickly because it's taking action quickly on a lot of government operations immediately, and I think it does freak people out. But the president does understand that he has a finite amount of time, just literally and politically, to do the things that he said he wants to do and that he wants to do. And he's put things in motion in place different than his first term that are happening very rapidly, because I think he understands the urgency for all these policy changes.
Scott, when you look at what he's doing right now, I have equated it to he's walking on a high wire with no net underneath. That he is banking that the things that he's laying down right now are going to work in the next 2 years. He has 2 years to govern, not 4, because we have the midterms coming up in 2 years, and you and I both know what happens traditionally in midterms. Right. And so I think he's saying, hey, I've got to show people results in a short period of time, because normally it goes against the incumbent and the incumbent legislature when the vote comes up in 2 years. However, if he does well, and if people can see that a rising tide will lift all boats somehow, he gets 2 more years to govern as opposed to being a lame duck. Fair statement?
Yeah, it is a fair statement. And he will still have the 2 years to govern even as a lame duck, but obviously it would be much more difficult if the Senate and the House were under Democrat control, and it would be mired probably with more something like a totally investigative viewpoint than trying to move policy forward, whether you agreed it was good or bad for the country. That's what I think he, like you said, he's trying to avoid by showing production and having it have a tangible result for people in time for the midterm, so that he can maintain the legislature, so it's not a distraction to him, but more of a partner in trying to do things.
Congressman, when you look at the amount of executive orders that he's putting out now, he's not the first one to do this. Republicans and Democratic presidents alike have all used executive orders. He's using them a lot, though. I mean, and he's really coming down with them and putting them into use right away. Are you at all uncomfortable as a member of the legislative branch at seeing so much executive order come down? I know some of them are used as negotiation. I know he's pressing the limits on some of them. What are your thoughts on that? Because our founding fathers came up with a separation of powers with 3 separate duties for our 3 branches of government. And so some people would say, well, if the legislature doesn't do their job, then the president's doing it through executive orders. But that's not how it was designed, was it?
It wasn't designed that way. And over time, quite honestly, it is the legislature that has ceded its power to the executive branch. Article 1 has ceded its authority to Article 2 in too many occasions.
I agree.
And that's why we have such a powerful president and now such a powerful federal government. The federal government was supposed to be the weaker between the federal government and the states, and of course the executive wasn't supposed to be having these sweeping powers, but they've been given by the legislative branch. One of the problems is that you get this shifting back and forth every 4 years or every 8 years that is very dramatic between the political poles.
Right.
And I think it's hard for people and institutions, organizations to keep up with that. It's expensive, and it's emotional for the citizens who see this rocking back and forth in such wild swings. The thing is, it's not enduring, Gary.
Exactly.
The president makes these pronouncements, and then in 4 years, if he's not the president, and somebody that doesn't agree with him is not the president, then they go away. Where legislatively these things are enduring. The problem with that is that the legislature takes forever to do things,
right?
And then when it does things, they're almost always half measures, or they won't do anything difficult because they're so concerned about the next election, and so the country requires a lot of immediate action on certain things. You look at the speed of AI. We can't wait till the legislature figures that out and comes to terms with that, while China and our adversaries continue to advance at breakneck pace, and so the executive has to take action on things like that. That's one of the flaws in our system. It takes so long for a body of 535 between House and Senate to come to terms and agreement and vote on something that actually gets to the president's desk for signature.
I think it's a great point you make, and I think even more so, we say bipartisan is like 3 or 4 people cross over and vote with some on the other side. Bipartisan should be, what are we doing to coalesce around good policy for the country? Bipartisan ought to be a whole lot of people coming together, not just 3 or 4. These guys say, like, well,
right.
one Republican voted with a Democrat or one Democrat voted with a Republican. That's bipartisan. It's not. That was not how it was designed. It was designed to say, okay, we have 2 different ways of going at this, but we've got to come up with some kind of consensus bill that's going to be best for the country at the end of the day. And we're not doing a very good job of that, I don't think, legislatively.
No, we're not doing a good job at it. And habitually, we haven't been, at least in modern times, in my opinion. But Gary, the problem is deeper than that. Like when you say what's good for the country, when we can't agree on some fundamental, basic fundamental issues, whether women should be or men should be in women's bathrooms or something like that. Right. How do you deal with the big issues when you can't deal with and I'm not saying that that's not a worthy issue that requires consideration, but even that has wild swings back and forth, as you're seeing right now, right?
Well, you saw Friday night what happened when a lot of the websites took out all that stuff about gender, and now it's male or female. Right. Of course, ruffling some feathers. One of the things that's interesting right now about President Trump, and as you look at some of the things he's doing, he's got Marco Rubio down in Panama right now. Just got something done where they're not going to continue a contract with one of the Chinese groups down there that has a port. We talk about Greenland. We're talking about some of the other things we're doing. And there seems like I won't call it a new imperialism on the part of the United States, but when you look at what Russia's doing, when you look at what China's doing, it almost looks like we are kind of rattling our saber a little bit to have a little bit more of a presence again in the Western Hemisphere. Your thoughts about that with Panama Canal, maybe Greenland, I don't know in the long run, but some of the things that we're saying we are going to do. And then, of course, the tariffs that are out there now, and it's yet to be seen as to how they're going to work out with the battling of tariffs between us, Canada, Mexico, and China. Your thoughts on those three things? Right.
Well, I think that America has to stand up for America, and it's been so long that America has been gracious to its neighbors around the planet, which have abused their circumstances in relationship with us, whether it's trade or whether it's on national security. And I think rightly so, the president is saying, look, there are certain things that we have to have a clear understanding and a clear level of comfort on for our national security. You can't have the Chinese Communist Party control the Panama Canal,
Correct.
Which we built. We understand it's in Panama, but we built it, and we can't have them control the lanes of shipping, not only in the China Sea, but right here in the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, whatever your pleasure is there. We simply can't have that, and we can't have Russia controlling the sea lanes to our north when they're rattling their sabers constantly and putting us under threat or pressure of nuclear conflict. We simply can't have that. And so America has to stick up for itself. I think we'd be fine if the world were a much more cordial and collegial place. But unfortunately, we have to deal with the reality that there are bellicose actors in the world who seek to take down the United States of America. And I think this is just a reflection of that reality. And I think President Trump gets it, where a lot of regular folks that aren't the president of the United States, they get it too, but they just have never seen anybody do anything about it in their lifetime with the people that have occupied the White House, and now they are seeing it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how we're negotiating down there in the Panama Canal at the moment with Marco Rubio, and it looks like some of the things the president is saying are being used again to kind of leverage there in the long run. Final thoughts this morning on where we are right now after the first 2 weeks in government.
Well, I think the president is moving at the speed that a lot of us expected him to. I'm sure the detractors wished he wouldn't, but it's not unexpected. There have been a couple, there's been a couple bumps that were unexpected. We knew that the courts were going to weigh in. The real question I have, Gary, is as a member of the legislature, is when we're going to try and catch up with the president. We still have a funding package from last year to deal with. We've got a debt ceiling to deal with, and we've got this year's funding to deal with. And we're having continued conferences, but I have a plan. Members that I deal with have a plan, but the Republican conference hasn't put together a plan yet to get the votes to move through the House and the Senate to get to the president's desk. And when you look at the cost of deportation of criminals, I mean, you've got to deal with that cost, and at some point that money's going to run out. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that's navigated. The president has said he will accept one bill or two bills. He just wants the job done. I agree with them on that, but I will tell you the swamp is striking back too.
Yep.
And they want the status quo to remain, and what they're doing is holding their breath, hoping that they can just survive the 4 years and outlive President Trump. I hope that's not the case. I hope we will get after it, come up with some good things. It's not going to be perfect, but that move the ball forward in the direction of President Trump's mandate. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm working towards.
Yeah, if you want to keep that mandate, you've got to have action, and you can't have people backing away at the end, as we saw the last time President Trump was in, for example, on Obamacare, and it cost in the midterms big time the next time around. So we'll see what happens here if people get on board with that. Congressman, always great to have you on the show. Thank you for the discussion this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary. God bless you, and be well. Great to talk with you.
Thanks. Great to talk to you. Talk to you again next month. Take care. Congressman Scott Perry with us here on WOYK. When we come back, we got some more news under the radar for you. Straight ahead. Mark's got that right around the corner. Straight ahead and right around the corner. All that here on WOYK. It's the Gary Sutton Show, where it is 7:20.